Let's open with the Leafs and the Habs. All right, since we last recorded, the Canadiens and the Leafs had 2 games between them. Montreal, the game against Edmonton. We're not even going to bother with that. No one cares about Edmonton. Sorry, Leon Draisaitl. 2 annoying games, from my view.
From my view too.
Yeah, 2 very frustrating games from both sides that go. Leafs won the first game. Montreal won the second game. So let's start with this, Alex. What happened?
Montreal was the better team in both of them.
I do not agree with that.
No,
but no. I thought they were crap up until the end of the second yesterday. I don't think they deserve to win either of those games. But Carey Price is like, hey,
that's so like I didn't think the Leafs should have won the first one.
Really?
Yeah, I wasn't that impressed. Like I think
they got lucky. I mean, not lucky, but I know like Montreal. I think both games had the energy and the jump.
Here, I think
they just didn't execute every time.
I think you're right. I think the Leafs took off like that last game against Vancouver, and I think we had an episode before they actually played Montreal, and I said they have to make sure they don't let their foot off the gas, because especially a team like Montreal, even though they're in a rough patch, you never know when a team is going to get out of a rough patch. Mm-hmm. You can't predict these things, especially in hockey. So you can't walk in there with your foot off the gas. And I felt that's kind of like they had a okay start, and it felt like they were laying their foot off the gas. And then the third period came, they scored those 2 goals, and that's kind of how it went. Like it wasn't an impressive game from my standpoint for the Leafs, considering how they've played for most of the season. And even in that second game, like I think Toronto was all over Montreal in the first period, but the second and third, I just felt like they were just kind of, and maybe this is good practice, I just felt like they were trying to defend the lead, and they weren't being the Leafs that I know they can be. And that happened last season, that happened under Babcock multiple times, where they tried to hold the lead and focus on that defensive game, but it can end up backfiring on you like it did last night.
Daniel, what happened?
There's definitely that trend that these 1-goal games that I was seeing on Twitter, this I guess luck or this ability to kind of just defend those 1-goal leads, especially in the third period, like that can't go on forever. And we just saw that last night where Toronto just kind of, I guess not really came out flat in the third, but it's just that what I've said, like what Montreal kind of had with those 4 lines, there wasn't that jump with Toronto. They weren't trying to, increase the lead. They weren't really, I guess, buzzing in a way that you wanted them to be, especially how we've talked about of how deep the Leafs forwards are, especially at the top, where I wanted to see more from John Tavares. I wanted to see more from Austin Matthews.
I think that's fair. Like, I think it was the first game very much. By the way, last night's game is how I actually thought Wednesday was going to go, like a very physical Montreal team, a much tighter game is what we had. But, on Wednesday, I thought, like, Montreal couldn't make a pass. And do you know what? I thought it was the depth guys for Toronto that really made the difference. And I hate calling this guy a depth player. But I thought Justin Hall was the best player on both ends of the ice in that Wednesday game. And I'll shut up about Ilya Mikheyev, by the way. You got to love me saying he's got to score. Go. And then he did, the cheeky bastard.
Got to start going.
Like Travis Dermott sniping one on Carey Price. What's this about? I was really impressed by the Leafs depth guy.
Yeah. Like I think you put it perfectly. Like I think the Leafs won Wednesday's game a lot on the depth and a lot on, I think, Freddie, even though he let in the first goal of the game. And I think that's it. And if there's 3 guys that I want to point out over these last 2 games, number 1 is Justin Hall. I think you're absolutely right. Like he's looked like he fits perfectly on that top 4 next to Jake Muzzin. And the thing we talk a lot about Jake Muzzin, and he's able to elevate his partner, and he did it with Zaitsev, right? Like that's the big example. Zaitsev next to anyone else was horrendous to watch, but for some reason next to Muzzin, he was okay. And I think even like I haven't been impressed necessarily with Muzzin the last couple of games, but Justin Hull has still had that high level he's had over the last like the rest of the season. The other guy is Freddie, who's I think performed much better than the start of the season, and that's just a continuation of my praise of a while. And Austin Matthews, I want to point out Austin Matthews because he looks like a different player. I don't know if we've talked about this much on the podcast.
The Toronto goal last night, how he just sort of took Phil Deneau's lunch money. I was like, oh my. Quickly on Muzzin and Muzzin. What's interesting is there was very much a mirror with him and Josh Anderson. I found really, really funny in both these games. Going to Wednesday, it was Josh Anderson with his physical play, sort of had that hit on Muzzin that actually took him out the play, and he managed to score that goal for Montreal, right?
Yeah.
But, Muzzin gets the last lap because Toronto win. Then you go to last night's game, and there's that clip in the third. I think Anderson had 6 hits. Tries to go for number 7. Tries to take out Jake Muzzin. Muzzin sidesteps him, laughs at him, but at the end of the day, Muzzin didn't have a stick in the right position, and Gallagher was able to get the game winner.
Yeah.
So I found it was really, really funny to see Muzzin and Anderson going back and forth. I've never said this on the show, but if there's a fight I'd like to see,
it's
that would be heavyweight. I would love to see that very, very much.
Like there was I think we walked into the season, we saw Ben Sherrod and Wayne Simmons, and it's like, wow, that's a heavyweight fight. Like you don't, especially in Toronto, like think about it, all we've seen is like Jason Spezza versus, I don't even remember who, it might have been Dean Kukin, who we talked about last episode, but it might we haven't seen a fight. There was Ron Hainsey that one time, right? So to see Simmons versus Sherrod, that was already a heavyweight fight. But I think Muzzin and Anderson, you're right, would be that's just out of this world for Leaf fans.
Alex?
Yes.
I think you're missing Colton Orr and Fraser McLaren right now.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I don't want them on my
Corbinian
fourth line.
Holzer.
Maybe a little bit Corbinian Holzer, but not on my fourth line.
Coached by Randy.
Randy, good one, Randy.
You know what? I have to question what the hell Montreal are doing on Wednesday, because I told you guys in our group chat, but I was walking around, of course, and there's a Starbucks across the street from the Bell Center, and just sitting in the corner with a mask on, very well, with his girlfriend, there's a guy in a suit like an hour and a half before the game, and it's freaking Tyler Toffoli and Jake Evans. I'm like, and they're up there laughing, they're having a good time, and I'm thinking, guys, you better win tonight. I wanted to shout, pretend like you're playing against Vancouver. Took Toffoli another game to get that goal, but what are the lads doing? Someone on Montreal, there was a lot made. Whenever Montreal are on a bad spill, the first guy, if you notice, who always gets the criticism is Carey Price, face of the franchise, damn it. And do you know what? He came in last night, and he was the number one reason Montreal won the Saturday night game.
He held the fort.
Isn't that the thing with any team though? And I maybe with Montreal, it's a little bit higher considering his contract, I guess. But I feel like even in Toronto, it's always the goaltender that gets blamed first, no matter what. Like Freddie's always the scapegoat. It was always Reimer. It was always Bernier. It was always whoever was in net. I mean, you go to most teams, we're always talking about the goalie, the goalie that. You're right though, but he did absolutely perform. Spectacular.
I think every superstar always has a target on his back, like Carey Price, that you're gonna have something like that. I think it's just two different narratives because, and if I'm gonna go look back on things, I think with Frederik Andersen, there's the consistency of it that he is an all-star level goalie. It's just when I look back, with the exceptions of, Reimer or Giguère, even in his later years, we'll have the Andrew Raycroft, we'll have the Jonas Gustafsson, the Ben Scrivens, but I'm saying with Montreal, I think it just before Carey there was the Cristobal Huet and the Jose Theodore, but I think it was just with Carey at that level, it's always going to be like that every night. gonna see. I think it's more of a narrative this season because of what he was able to do last season,
Mhm.
and this whole thing of okay, is he really back to what we had in 2015, 2014, or is this just like a one-off thing? But I don't think it is a one-off thing.
One mistake I felt like because obviously a story from that first sort of rough spatch Montreal just had is guys are going very much on Carey Price's blocker, and it felt like last night they were going a bit too heavy, going high on him, and he's like, guys, like I can see what you're doing. Like,
You know,
are we forgetting like this man has been playing goaltending for how long and has been the
Right.
starter? I feel
Yeah.
like he can eventually pick up where you're going here.
the CPU is adjusting to your style of play.
Yeah, it's just, and you know what though? I think definitely Montreal are now on their bye week. Obviously, they don't play again until next Saturday when they play. Oh, the Toronto Maple Leafs again. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah.
It was a very much a I don't want to say desperate, but at the same time, I kind of want to do. It was a win that Montreal had to have yesterday because, of course, they had just lost their 3 of their last 4 games. The retro reverse jersey is cursed, by the way. We should not be wearing them. But very much a win that now there's a bit less stress on Montreal going into their bye week. And leading the way last night on forward was, stop me if you've heard this before, it was Brendan Gallagher. I'm thankful for this guy to be on my hockey team. I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, he's like, I guess that embodiment of a player that, he just sticks with it. Like if I'm like saying that, I think he's an amazing player, but he's just one of those guys that, he has the character of being in the room where, I think like a lot of people before have compared him to like a Brad Marchand type of player. And I don't think in terms of like the dirtiness of it, like I respect Brendan Gallagher. Like I respect Brad Marchand's skill, but not the other stuff. But like with Brendan Gallagher, he's the kind of guy where he could play that role, but he doesn't take it too far.
Brendan Gallagher is a guy you hate to play against, but love to have on your team. And I think those type of players, there's not a lot of them. There's not. Like it's Tom Wilson, Brad Marchand. I guess Kadri's. You can throw Kadri in there as well.
Prime Corey Perry.
Not a whole lot. Like it's very limited.
Corey Perry purposely knocked the net off last night, like Montreal's, and I just saw it and I was like, God damn it! I love having you on this team now. Like it wasn't gonna work. But like, dude, what are you doing? Okay, yeah, we'll talk about roster stuff in a sec. Sorry, go ahead, Alex.
No, no, just go ahead. I'll bring it up later.
There's roster decisions coming on both sides of the patch here. There's more to talk about with the Leafs, so I'll get this out the way for Montreal now. Earlier today, Paul Byron was placed on waivers. If there's a team that's going to claim, by the way, I'm predicting Ottawa. Hometown guy in Canada. They have the cap space, and I don't think he's going to get moved. But if somebody is asking, by the way, why he's put on waivers, it is the simple fact of Montreal don't play for another week, and him on the taxi squad is basically building up cap space. If you're going to ask me how that works, I don't know how to explain it to you. But if you want to know what it is, it's basically the stuff the Leafs have been doing for the past 3 years.
You know who?
Gymnastics.
Right. You know who could use a winger?
No.
The Edmonton Oilers.
I would be.
I'm just saying.
Suddenly on the first line, Paul Byron.
They just waived James Neal, so there's.
I'm just putting that out there. You're right. They waived James Neal for whatever reason, as if someone's possibly going to claim him.
So Calgary won the trade.
Sure. That's not a winnable trade. I'm sorry. Like there's no win. It's a lose-lose trade. Both sides lost.
Which team's turd smells worse?
Right. Like, is it dog crap or is it horse crap?
We're going to have to wait for that 3rd round pick that Calgary got.
Sure.
Did they? Was that the condition of the goal differentials between them?
It was, and then that actually went to negotiations because it was cut short. That James Neal would have hit he would have hit the bar if they kept going, but they decided like he was gonna hit it anyway, so yeah, give them the pick.
Yeah, so it's
Um,
this year's pick, this coming pick.
Yeah. Looking at the Toronto side of things, Joe Thornton himself confirmed that he is playing tomorrow against the Ottawa Senators. You'll have to see that coming, and
Power
that
move.
means what?
Power move by Joe.
That is the
I'm
board,
back.
the Gordon
And we're
Bombay
back.
power move, and we're back.
So,
So with Joe Thornton returning, lads, you know what that means. Roster decisions incoming, Alex, for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I think what's being talked about the most is obviously who's playing on that first line with Matthews and Marner, which is respectfully should be the big story in the city, because who the hell knows? Like, I mean, it should be Hyman in my opinion. They're probably going to go back to Thornton. I guess we'll find out. But I think what's not really being talked about is that Pierre Engvall, thanks to Cap Friendly, by the way, for letting me know.
Yes.
Pierre Engvall needs one more NHL game, before he is required to pass through waivers. So for him to go, like, I think what was happening a lot was, obviously he was being sent to the taxi squad, save a little bit of cash, and along with other players as well. So that's not going to be able to happen anymore. So we're going to have to make a decision on Pierre Engvall soon. Is he in the lineup, or is he going to be consistently a scratched player and come in during injuries or the odd back-to-back? I think that's what's going to be a question, because they just sent Robertson just got taken off the IR. So now Robertson and Sandin both got sent down to the AHL. Thankfully, Robertson can play in the AHL because the OHL hasn't started yet. But so it's tough, because what I've seen from what's his name, Sheldon Keefe, is that he's willing to try all these guys, and sometimes it's worked, sometimes it doesn't. Like, who the hell would have guessed Travis Boyd would have looked semi-decent on the fourth line? Like, I didn't think he was going to touch NHL ice this season.
Same here.
Like, I don't think many people did. So the fact that he's willing to Keefe's willing to try different things is going to play into a lot of decisions that Dubas is going to have to make. Like, I'm not worried about Sandin and Robertson going to the AHL. I think people just automatically think that's where they're going to stay. And, Mark Marinson's going to is going to be your next guy. But I don't think that's going to be the case. Like, I think if there's an injury or a couple injuries, Sandin's making the lineup before Marincin.
And I like these depth options that Toronto has. That what you said, I applaud Sheldon Keefe for giving these guys the opportunities to really kind of show what they got, because the Leafs did sign a bunch of these guys to a lot of like minimum level contracts. But a big thing I think for me is, maybe because I just have a soft spot for him, but worst case scenario, if Pierre Engvall is waived, that it's a big body guy that I kind of expected him to have it all, figured out this year and become a permanent fixture on this lineup, even if it is the fourth line. So it's something that I really want to kind of focus on, something that I think I'm going to follow along, because he is that big body guy, can play center. And when he kind of knows that it's either that or the taxi squad or beyond waivers, he really did come out. And I remember Steve Dangle tweeted about that Pierre was flying out there.
He was. Like, the thing with Engvall is it's not that he doesn't have it. It's that he needs to be consistent. And like, he has that body. He has the big body. And it was the thing with a lot of players, multiple players on this team, number one, including the guy on number one on the list being Austin Matthews, who's fixed that. Like, I've seen Austin Matthews use his body more this season than I have in the past 4 years he's been with this team. And considering Engvall's in the bottom six, if he can use his body more, that changes the game for his spot in the lineup.
It's just another tool if he's that Swiss Army knife type player, right?
Exactly.
Pierre may be going, but is he pushing? Is the real question. Drive to
Yeah.
Survive season 3. Where are you now?
Oh.
Anything you guys want to add on now to the Leafs, to the Habs? We won't
Yeah.
talk about next Saturday night. We'll preview that this Wednesday.
Yeah, the one thing I want to bring up, and I follow a couple people on Twitter for Habs stuff, and
Yes.
it was funny seeing, like, other than you, I mean, like, obviously, it was funny seeing someone else for once imploding while the Leafs weren't. The fan base, I mean, like, it was like, oh, like, this happens to other teams.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, in the nicest way
Refreshing.
possible,
No, when I saw it, I'm like, people, calm the hell down.
because I know it happens every single time here, and it's like one of the most frustrating things to watch.
Yes.
Every time someone makes a mistake, it's Dubas is fired, Keefe is fired. I'm like, okay, this happens to other teams. I don't feel bad anymore.
Mhm.
I guess the one thing I'd like to add is, I think again, like, it's a slight bias here because I got to watch him a lot in the Marlies, but I love Pierre Engvall. I like the game he brings, and I know it's different circumstances this season, but Frederic Gauthier had more opportunities than Pierre Engvall to kind of show it.
That is true.
Freddie the goat, the goat, the goat.
Hope
Talking
he's
about
well,
goats.
by the way.
Sorry?
Hope Freddie the Goat is well.
As well in Arizona.
Is he still in Arizona?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
they signed
Maybe-
him. They signed him.
Okay.